Good morning, everyone. So that we could be as interactive as possible, I would like to ask you to answer two quizzes. So there are 7.5 billion people in the globe right now, more or less. How many percentage point of the people get access to the stable electricity? Access to the electricity. Option 1 is 30, 2, 50, 3, 80%. 30%, 50% of 80%. So those who would like to vote for 30%. Okay. And those for 50%. Minority voting for 80%. The answer is 80. The change in these 10 years are so significant that now 80% of the 7.5 billion people getting access to more or less stable electricity. Next question. How much percentage point of an infant under 1 year old, less than 1 year, get vaccine immunization of one form or other? At least vaccine immunization among all the global children. Again, option 1 is 30%. Option 2 is 50%. Option 3, 80%. So those who are voting for option 1, 30%. Okay, and those who for 50%. And those who are going to 80%. More people are learning when I'm learning. Yes, it's 80%. Again, the change in these 10 years are significant. 80% of all the infants in the world now get at least one single dose of vaccine immunization. If you would like to get more positive story of the world, please do read the book called Factfulness by one of my favorite TED Talk speaker. But unfortunately, the guy just died 2 years ago. So the book is actually pretty good summary of what has been very positive in these 10 years. Those 10 years positive changes to the humankind boosted the number of middle-class people in the world. Huge number of the people went out of the poverty, getting into more and more middle class. Middle class means travel. Many people now have the privilege of traveling around the world, outside of their countries. Thanks to that, Japanese inbound tourism, sitting at the eastern edge of Asia, is booming. In 2003, Japanese government started the Visit Japan campaign. At that very year, the inbound tourism, the number of inbound tourists to Japan was only 5.2 million. Last year, everybody knows that, 28 million. And Japan's outbound tourism, those Japanese who are traveling overseas, is about 17 million, way beyond the number who are incoming. So we have more imports of the people than export of the people right now. Having said that, sorry, I was a retired consultant, so I need to have some data to set up with you, It's 3/4 of Japanese economy is already in service side. Japan is not a manufacturing-driven country. Already we are a service-driven country, 3/4. But the productivity of travel and tourism sector of Japan, according to the economic academics, is about 50% of that of United States. Very low productivity. More than 75% of travel and tourism workers are part-time workers. Average household income is only 3 million yen per annum for most of the workers in travel and tourism. So there is a huge dichotomy. Demand is booming, and there are people coming more and more. But actually, the wage level is low. Employment in Japan for this industry is very unstable. How can we change this situation? This is the whole theme of this one. And also, if we have time, we really would like to have some time spare to are we really investing for the future? Because the current inbound tourism relied so much on the assets accumulated by years of efforts by our ancestors and predecessors. Like Tanada, layered rice garden. It took nearly 50 to 60 years to complete that. And in order to maintain that, you need a constant intervention of a human being. Satoyama, which is a sort of a seemingly natural landscape, woods and lakes and others, but most of the cases, humankind made some intervention to keep it intact, to conserve that. Jinjas, shrines, and temples, Japanese food cultures, all are assets we inherited from our ancestors and predecessors. But are we really investing for the future? That's something I really would like to touch upon for the last portion of that. So having said that, I know that travel and tourism should be something with fun. I really would like to introduce distinguished analyst who is really doing some fun thing on the ground, not like a consultant talking about the macro data. They are day-to-day trying to help people enjoying in the maximum way for their stay in Japan. So let me start with Kato-san. Kato-san, can you just quickly talk about what you're actually doing and how do you view the issues regarding the current trend of the inbound tourism and productivity issues of the industry?
Okay. Good morning, everyone. Yeah, I'm Fumiko Kato from Wamazing. In fact, I am not good at English at all, but I have plenty of things to tell you all about this theme, so I encouraged myself to be here. Yeah, I founded Wamazing 2 years ago. This is the kind of startup company providing inbound travelers people to enjoy Japan's travel resources as much as we provide free SIM cards at over 20 international airports in Japan, because most of inbound people comes from Asian countries, is really younger than Japan's travelers. Japan's average age is 49 years old now, but ASEAN Asian countries, people's average age is 27 and 28. And for example, China mainland average age is 36 now, and they use 100% smartphone. Now, smartphone
for everything.
For everything. And Japanese people, the smartphone usage level is now 70%. And travelers in Japan, domestic Japanese travelers, the industry is occupied about 54% by over 50 ages people.
So older people travel in Japan.
Yeah. So we provide smartphone-based travel agency for younger Asian inbound travelers people.
So can I ask just, so it's if I'm a traveler from, say, Thailand, I reach out KIX, Kansai International. So I'm going to buy one of your SIM card?
No, if you installed Wamazing apps before you traveling to Japan,
before coming to Japan.
Before coming to Japan, Thai people can register their information and get QR code. And if they show their QR code to Wamazing original machine set in international airport, they can get SIM card for free.
For free, yes.
So,
that's the important thing. It's for free. And having put that SIM card, I have access to all the service.
Yes,
you're rendering.
yes, yeah. And Amazing can recommend to them several restaurants or activities and hotels or online duty-free shoppings information through the app or website, through smartphone, according to their information or geography, GPS data or something.
Yeah, so from the point of view of me as a tourist, it's easy way to get the necessary information in my own language, if necessary. But for the supplier side, it's much productive than to put so many people in so many hotel concierge and agent people. But rather, every interaction is all connected by smartphone.
Yeah,
So you were basically improving the productivity of the industry.
Thank you.
So how is the pickup your business in the recent 2 years?
Pickup.
Meaning that the growth ratio?
Growth ratio. Now our service provides services especially for people from Taiwan and Hong Kong. It's already up download numbers is 200,000.
So getting more and more. So
getting more and more. We started service to mainland China last month, and now we expand to global by English service this week.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I'm going to ask more questions about your business and related to the productivity and the trend. So next, I would like to, Ross-san, I usually talk to Ross in Japanese, so it feels quite awkward for me to just talk in English to you. So let me briefly ask you what's
in
happening.
Australian, please.
Yeah, Australian. Good day. So that's as far as I can. So could you just provide what's happening in Niseko right now and how you view the trend of the productivity and the inbound tourism overall?
Okay. Just quickly before I go to Niseko, I'll just introduce myself. I started in 1995. I started an outdoor activity company, outdoor adventure company in Niseko. And at the time, there was only a winter business in Niseko, and I started a summer business doing rafting and whatnot. And from there, it actually moved the whole summer business, a summer market in Niseko where there was none, and now it's about equal, summer and winter. So it was a big move in Japan at the time and something that hadn't been considered before. And then in 2001, because of certain things happening in the world and terrorism and whatnot, a whole lot of Australians decided to go to Niseko instead of going to Europe or America for their ski holiday. And so Japan's a very closed community, as you might think. And so they're also, it's not so much closed, but they like to keep their good things secret. And Niseko was one of these good things. It has the best snow in the world. Well, yeah, by my own opinion. But anyway, it virtually snows every day. And as soon as you go off the course, you're in deep snow. There's powder snow, which is every skier's heaven. And so Japan had been trying to keep this secret, and then a whole bunch of Australians came. They went back to Australia and told a whole bunch of other Australians. And then they went and dragged the whole world into the whole thing. And now Niseko has become the most popular destination among skiers in the world. And because of the time, you're thinking 2001, Japan, especially the ski industry, was going right downhill. For example, Hakuba was at 25% of its peak. Hakuba has 800 pensions. And you think 25%, how many of those pensions had to go out of business? And Niseko was more or less the same. So the banks didn't want to lend you any money to start a pension or to support your crumbling pension. And the whole place was starting to fall apart. And during the bubble, you could set up a business hotel and charge 30,000 yen a night and still get it. And so the level of accommodation was very low. And so what happened is a bunch of us bright Australians thought, well, let's make some condominiums. And they went and approached the local pension owner. He said, yeah, give me money. And he managed to sell his pension for about 200,000. The next year, he managed to sell his pension for about 500,000. The year after that, he managed to sell his pension for about $1 million. And now they sell them for 2 million, 3 million, 4 million. And so the whole resort, virtually, bulldozed. And now new condominiums, new hotels, world standard, Park Hyatt, Hilton, etc., etc. The big names in hotels are moving in. It's a very, very fast-growing resort.
Very interesting story, though, is that I was sort of, along with Roshan, with the help of him, one of the group of my friends, actually G1-related friend, went to the very high-end condominium hotel, which is a top-notch small hotel, ski hotel of the world, 2 years in a row. They are voted as #1 of the world. And I learned that the price of the owner of the condo is actually he can earn back the money only in 3 years. So the investment is large, but the earn back is high. So meaning that the global investors are investing tons of money over there. Do you think it's sustainable? Particularly, giving the labor of local community, and how it is sustainable? How to make it, continuous success?
Okay, first of all, that condominium is $5,500 a night. So he must be earning back his money pretty quickly. But that's pretty cheap by now standards. That's a few years ago. I think $15,000 is the top price at the moment for one night in Niseko. So if you've got some spare cash. Sustainability. It's at the moment, the snow is the best in the world, and for 100 days of the year, you're almost full for 100 days. So if you're charging $5,500 a night, you're probably going to be okay. It's pretty sustainable. The problems we're getting is a lot of things are not sustainable. If I create a restaurant and I'm paying $3,000 a month or $5,000 a month in rent, and then I have to rent the whole year, and after those 100 days, there's no customers. So for what I'm trying to earn over 1/3 of the year, I'm trying to earn a whole year's wages and profits to pay for rent and things. So what's happening is most of the restaurants are closing because they can't open during the summer. Even if the summer you think it's only a peak of around August for one thing, you just can't get the staff in for that 1 month. So in terms of those things, it's not sustainable unless it becomes an all-year-round resort.
Yeah.
To get to an all-year-round resort, a change of thinking is necessary.
Yes.
So at the moment, the ski resort's fine, but it needs to be branded as an all-year-round outdoor lifestyle resort. And the problem is outdoor lifestyle. And I think in this afternoon's session, there'll be some more about this, but not many Japanese towns and governments, even at the Hokkaido level and probably even at the national level, would understand that concept.
So because of the law and regulation. So you mean that if we can manage peaks and trough and only 100 days out of 365, and so stable 80% utilization year-round, we can make the productivity and wages and everything's up. But in order to do that, deregulation and changing the mindset of the government is going to be the key. That's what you're saying?
What I'm saying is, like, to get something to outdoor lifestyle, it means spending tax money on fun infrastructure.
Yeah.
Which is very hard for governments. They don't like fun. There's no fun department in anywhere, anything, which there should be. Everything should be including fun.
Ministry of Fun.
Yeah, the Ministry of Fun. For example, we're going to have the Shinkansen, the fast bullet train coming into our town. And I said to them, the customers coming here are coming for outdoors. They want to sit here and have a cup of coffee and look at the beautiful Yote-san, which is shaped like Mount Fuji, and look at all the beautiful. Now you're going to have a big scar going straight across the valley. How can we make this green? Can we put vines on it? Can we put trees around it? But there's no thought towards that at all. That's fun.
That's okay. Interesting things to think about. So just coming back to you, Kato-san, do you think providing a kind of an incentive for the user of your service to go more on the outdoor or utilizing it in the summer, not only is it doable from the data you are getting from your service?
Yeah, Amazing also provides snow resort booking service for inbound traveler people. We directly contracted with snow resorts over 200 resorts, almost half of all Japanese snow resorts. It's really inbound people really interested in now rural area or outdoor activities
So the
nowadays.
trend is there. You can think that summer could be utilized also.
Yeah, but summer could be utilized also, but summer is really hard to differentiate from other areas.
I see.
Because ASEAN people don't have snow, and China mainland also have dry, strong wind during the winter time from Mongol or Sabaku desert area. So they don't have real snow, really. So snow is really differentiated.
Okay, so how to position and market, for example, Niseko and Hokkaido area of the distinguished outdoor resort during the summer? So let us discuss it. Yeah, okay, later on. Sorry to have kept you waiting, Terry. So you've been in business for years and years in Japan. So could you let us provide what you're doing now? You have been doing many things. And how do you think the trend is going in terms of demand and also the productivity issue?
Okay, so I'm a serial entrepreneur, and this is actually company number 17 for me. Actually, company number 16 was a huge disaster, and I lost lots of money. And after the earthquake, Tohoku earthquake, I decided to forget about money, since I had lost so much, and just focus on doing something good. And I thought about all the industries that have been most impacted by the Tohoku earthquake, and the one that I could see was most devastated because of the radiation scare was tourism. So I called about 300 or 400 friends, foreigners living around Japan. I think we may have even talked then. And I asked them if they would help me start to write about how great Japan was, you know, and bring people back. And to my surprise, there were many people who felt like me, foreigners living in Japan and Japanese who'd lived abroad, who really wanted to help Japan with their typewriter, you know, with their keyboards. And so we created a community. I built some software around it. I took out a couple of patents on it. And that community is now roughly 30,000 people. And so we're the world's largest producer of inbound content for Japan. We have 13 languages. Anyway, so to my surprise, in 2013, Tokyo won the Olympics. Maybe there was a little payment there, who knows. But nonetheless, anyway, they won the Olympics. And suddenly the tourism boom was on. So we went from a basket case industry, which was basically just considered a donation to the country by me and many others, to suddenly being in a booming economy. So in 2015, actually in 2014, our media business was going great, but we weren't making money. And the reason was all of the companies in Japan that advertise are large companies. Small companies don't have money. And the large companies hadn't figured out that there was a boom. And then secondly, they weren't equipped, and they're still not equipped, to deal with tourists. And so we had to make money somehow. So we decided to set up a travel agency. And actually, it was the best thing we could have done, because with the travel agency, we get direct feedback from the travelers. Luckily, I was able to get some deals with YPO, YEO, and various other luxury organizations. And so mostly I deal with luxury tourists. So we do tuna cutting, we do helicopter rides, we have float planes that land in front of the hotel at Onomichi.
By the way, Japan is not known for luxury travel, and the people, actually buying for high-end resort and things like that. But what you're saying is that there are actually demand, there are actually activities, and not the lodging in itself, which allure high-end travelers.
Next week, I have a tour of 10 individuals from the States. 2 of them are multi-billionaires. They're coming in 4 private jets, but only 3 private jets are allowed to land in Noto. So we're having a fight at the moment about the 4th jet. So that's, but they want to come, and basically they asked me, I'm a cyclist, by the way. If anybody recognized, I've got a cycling bag here. And I was asked where the best places to cycle in Japan are. And in my mind, the top locations are Noto, Ishikawa-ken, and Shimanami Kaido. So that's where we're taking them. Next year it'll be Niseko. Next year it'll be Niseko. So anyway, so we set up a travel agency. And then what I found out is that all the people who own the inventory in Japan, hotel inventory, the bus inventory, the train inventory, none of them are connected. In fact, it's a major, major problem. And abroad, one of the biggest movements, if you like, is connectivity. People have these things called APIs. Everybody know what an API is?
Yes.
Yeah. So basically, they connect by API and they expect real-time satisfaction. Customers should be able to see, order, and then pay, and done. And if they do that, actually, it increases the likelihood that people will actually go to places they normally don't go, because they're stimulated by visual input and not by something that is more convenient. For example, like, Booking.com has a special in Nagoya or in Tokyo. Instead, they'll head out to Niseko or various other countryside places. So I started an integration unit, systems integration unit, about 2 years ago. I bought into a company in India, and so I do all the boring stuff there. I do all the creative stuff here in Japan. And actually, just a couple of months ago, I set up a contact center in the Philippines because the great thing about inbound travel is that all the customers don't need Japanese. And so therefore, you can service them anywhere. Of course, that once a person comes in, a customer comes in that needs to be escalated, we move them to one of the Japan consultants.
Yeah. I think, let me go back to the high-end travel issues, because in order to improve the productivity and the wage level, two things could do. One is that obviously your effectiveness of operation, but the other is the price you can get from invested labor. I think to get more portion of high-end traveler and let them spend more money in Japan would help boost up the productivity. But the issue is, as you're explaining, most of the platform for inbound travelers are for mass travelers, rather than mass customized, but not necessarily the high-end. So I was wondering how you can utilize that for your more sort of sophisticated, quote-unquote, high-end customers.
The thing that you learn about people when you're servicing people is that they're kind of disappointing, even when they're really rich. And there's a really big disconnect between luxury travelers overseas and Japanese thought processes. Japanese hate to waste things. Luxury travelers don't care about waste. They paid for it. If it's wasted, so what? So I had a situation about 3 weeks ago where I had a group, again, of billionaires and millionaires, and they suddenly decided after the second night that they don't like Japanese food anymore. They got sick of it. They want to have Western food. We had set up a $40,000 dinner with various tea senseis and performances, and they just canceled it. So we got a panic response from the company that was helping us, saying, you can't cancel, because even though you paid for it, what about the sensei? What are they going to think? So we had to go around all of the employees and ask them if they wanted to go to a free high-end dinner, which of course they did. So, they may be underpaid, but they certainly got a free dinner.
But meaning that they pay all for that, regardless.
They paid for it, and here's the kicker. So we then had to go and see the sensei and give them a present to say sorry for not having showed up with the right customers. We had to fake it, basically. So the customers paid. From their point of view, it's all done. What are you worried about? From our point of view, we have to keep the vendors, the sensei, happy that they were valued. It's really a totally different value system.
Yeah, I think that's one of the key things for the takeaway today, because we definitely need the very high end and also middle class. We need the pyramid But actually, Japanese who is not traveling, the average age is over 50. But the issue is most of the travel industry in Japan is so accustomed to the middle class.
Yes.
There is actually no real high-end travel service for Japanese in Japan.
Yeah, inbound travelers coming to snow resort always be surprised by there's only soba or katsukare there.
In the restaurants on the ski.
In France or Switzerland, they have so many Romane Conti or very high expensive champagne is lodged in the snow resorts. So
Do you think you serve champagne in Niseko?
Niseko's very high end.
Yes.
We have Michelin star restaurants and the whole thing, all the way down to my hamburger restaurant. There's everything.
Which is good with the Niseko. I learned that actually, with the help of non-Japanese workers, actually we actually try to teach how to serve high-end customers by way of asking some of the expats to serve the high-ends first.
It comes back to sustainability, and there is problems in Niseko. We have about 1,000 foreign workers coming in for the winter. So most of them are working holiday people. So you're servicing high-end people with working holiday people that have never done it before. And then they can only get it once. So the next season you're starting at scratch again. But of course the town's different. The town's there the whole time. It's 5 kilometers from the resort. There's 10,000 people staying at the resort. And our town is 15,000 people. So you can imagine you have 10,000. It's almost double our population. So just doubling your population is going to cause a bigger economic effect. All these people have got a lot of money. You know, they're on holidays. They've got spending money. Every day Sunday. So they're going down to town and spending money in all the restaurants down there. So our whole town, it's not a shutter thing. It's lots of new shops and lots of new restaurants opening up all the time. And it's very good effect on the economy. The good thing about Hirafu is it's not just one resort, not one owner. The Hirafu area is, I'm an owner as well, and there's lots of different owners, so there's lots of management, there's lots of owners, and the staff, the payment for staff is very high. I think we're the only place in Japan that has inflation, sorry, English is very hard, isn't it? Inflation. So we have Abenomics here, of course, and Abenomics is aiming for 2%. I think our area is around 5 to 8%, so we have Niseko-omics beating Abenomics.
So I think one of the key issues is that high-end, and also how to provide the proper service to the high-end, and that links to how to make our labor force kind of attuned to the service level which are needed. I was amazed to see all the bus stations and all the menus in Niseko are actually in English right now. So I was wondering how local people get attuned to the English fluency.
Yes, in Niseko, if you want to get a job, you have to be able to speak English in winter, or Chinese. So you look at the local population, the local school in a country town in Hokkaido. Of course, the way they teach English is not very good at the moment for speaking. So you're actually educating your local population to take the bottom jobs, you know, for clearing snow or whatever. It's a big problem. So you're looking at economic effects versus social effects, and you've got to understand that we have to build now. And it's funny because the education department in Kuchan is very slow to react. They are reacting, but they're very slow. But the kids themselves, all the way from primary school to high school, think, I've got to get English. And they're all saying it, and they're moving away from our town to get English at a better high school. They're going overseas. I had a kid in primary school saying, I want to work for NAC when I grow up, but I don't have very good English. This is a kid in primary school. It's already worked out that he has to have good English.
So they know that.
So they know that, but how quick can the local government reply to that is a problem.
It's quite interesting.
Or people in countryside should use technology
Translators?
translators more.
But the issue is the service. In person-to-person service, sometimes it's better to be fluent in English. Obviously, or in Chinese.
Or Chinese.
Obviously, the technology would help, but for the mass services, technology would do. But for high-end, sometimes it's really necessary. So I think we are talking about the revenue side. In order to get higher margin, we need to have more luxury travel. But also, we need to kind of change the way our travel industry operates. One thing is labor, but also in the ryokan. And basically, it's almost impossible for ryokan manager to comply legally to the labor law. Labor law stipulates 8 hours. Some time off and 8 hours next day. But most of the ryokan we go with, they serve dinner and they serve breakfast within the ryokan, meaning that the most of the staff work overnight, starting at 12 noon, ending next 12. Even the taxi driver with that one are going to have the next day off. But because of the productivity issues and lack of high-end travel, most of the ryokans cannot afford to do that. So they ask staff to have kind of, I shouldn't use the word fake, but sort of intended time off, but actually they are working. So I think there are certain things we need to do to boost up streamlining the operation. Do you have any opinion, Thierry, about the boost up of streamlining the operation?
Well, one of the defining aspects of Japanese service industry and hospitality industry is lack of flexibility. And they do that because they're trying to protect their livelihood and the people working for them. But they don't realize that by being flexible, they actually get more customers paying more money, and actually things will improve. Now, as an example, for many years in the hotel industry, the leaders have been Jaran and Rakuten. And between them, they have about 20,000 hotels in their databases. Of those 20,000, both of them have barely 5,000 hotels that service foreigners. And the reason is the other 15,000 either don't speak English, don't have confidence to speak English, or think that foreigners are a pain in the butt. So there is a company that has been challenging both of those firms, which are huge, called Booking.com. And Booking.com has been spending millions of dollars a year acquiring hotels. They have about 12,000 English hotels that will handle foreigners. And furthermore, they changed the whole business model. So the other two, you have to prepay, and there's a cancellation fee. With Booking.com, you pay at the hotel, and there's no cancellation fee. So you would think that's worse for the hotels, right? So I have a quiz for you. What's the percentage of foreign inbound bookings that are done through Booking.com as a percentage of the whole industry?
I have no idea.
But booking commission is the transaction fee. Commission fee is really high, or almost around 20%.
Yeah, actually it's around 15% now. But anyway, the answer is 50%.
Oh, already 50?
50. And she's right. The transaction fee, the booking fee that Booking.com charges at 15, and it was 20, is about double what the Japanese charge. Now think about that. Those Japanese companies have 18,000 hotels, and they take less commission, which means the hotels should make more money, right? And yet 50% of all the bookings are coming from the place which charges more commission, and those hotels are actually making money. Why? Because Booking.com is telling the hotels not to serve dinner. So if you want dinner, it's extra. So suddenly the cost of a ryokan goes from 40,000 yen to about 10 or 12 or 15,000 yen. And if you want dinner, you just pay more. That flexibility makes those ryokan money.
And also I have to add that in order to by not serving the dinner, it will help local economy, local restaurants to get the chances of getting boost up their productivity, as you rightly pointed out.
Yeah, but I know a lot of inbound people can stay the hotels through Booking.com without dinner. In urban area is okay. There is so many restaurants around there.
That's true.
But in snow area, like countryside areas, they stay only with breakfast, and they don't have dinner. They don't know much about the area.
So it's a system issue, right?
Yeah,
like
yeah.
Niseko,
But
there
I
are
think
restaurants.
I
Yeah.
think that's what happened in Niseko. You know, when the foreigners first started coming, there was only pensions and hotels, and everyone served dinner and all that sort of thing. But Australians want to stay 1 week, 2 weeks. And the poor pension owners had to have 2-week menu. Usually they only had a 3-day menu. And so from the next year, everyone just did bed and breakfast. It was a lot easier. So there was no restaurants. I had a restaurant then. we were full. Like, people would ring up the year before. Like, they'd make the appointment for the reservation for the next year because there wasn't any restaurants in. So it's not that there isn't any restaurants, but supply and demand, it's pretty simple. If there's a whole lot of people coming in that want dinner, there's going to be a lot of people saying, well, let's make a restaurant.
So I think for the sake of the time, I really would like to listen to all of you about many interesting data points about how to boost up the productivity of the industry. But I really would like to spend the last 5 minutes. Are we really investing for the future, particularly the landscape, in Japanese, keikan? One of the top-notch the Silicon Valley people who asked me to book some of the restaurants in one of the onsen hot springs near Kanazawa. I sort of booked very high-end hotel ryokan. They are so thrilled and they are so satisfied. But they told me they would never go again because one step outside the door of that ryokan, there are a bunch of ugly scenery of deserted hotels. If you go to the seaside, and there's a huge kanban, what is kanban? The signpost saying that gomi o suteru na, don't litter, which is actually breaking the landscape, and which is outside of each one of business. We need to find a way collectively to invest for the future, to improve the landscape of Japan, so that Japanese tourism would continue to have the attractiveness in the future. So, sorry to force you, but I really would like to store some time for the question and answer. 1 minute each, or any sentences about how do you think can we really improve the future scenery of Japan by collecting investment? Anyone like to spend some time?
I don't know about collecting investment, but I recently had a good fight with the local authorities and the power people on power lines. And I said, you know, they were going to they had one set of power lines on one side of the road, they're going to put another on this side of the road. And I said, well, why are we putting up new power lines? I thought what we were doing is putting them underground, so it was a nice environment. And they said, no, Ross, we can't do that. And I went everywhere. I went to the Hokkaido government, I went to the power people, I went to the local government. No one did anything. It's assumed to be normal to do that. And so I kept on kicking up a fuss, and I eventually found a national senator, and he was going to run the G20 in Niseko for tourism. And I said, well, you can't do this. You can't have all these power lines here. This is people, the first thing they're going to say is, why do they have all the power lines here if they're coming from overseas? I realized that. So he took it to heart, and they're going to take them all down for me now, so I'm quite happy.
Okay. Yeah, I think some of the non-Japanese cities known for the travel industry have some kind of scheme that there are certain, not only rules, but they are kind of accumulating some sort of their profit so that they could collectively invest into the future. Pasadena has it, and some of the European cities has it, and Hiroshima Governor Yuzaki-san is trying to imitate such a thing in order to boost up the scenery of Miyajima. But I really would like to ask everybody to put your thoughts on how can we really invest for the future, because sometimes not the older people doing the travel business is as brave as Ross. You know, he can speak up. And actually, there is a temple called Myoshinji in Kyoto. If you go to the Myoshinji next, there is no power line above, because they said 400 years ago, there was no power line. In order for Zen garden to be really meaningful for Zen prayer, there shouldn't be any electricity. And they spent about 10 years of time and some money, and with some help from the Kyoto city, there is no power line in the above. Within Myoshinji areas, you won't see the electricity rights. So I think there are certain things we could do, but I really would like to ask many of you to ask a firing question within 30 seconds, so that I would ask you to put your hands up for the questions, and I would like 3 of you to go through, and if you would like someone to answer that please. So first you, and second you, and third.
Yes, everyone is enthusiastic about tourism, and that's right. But I have one question. If you look at Europe, you have a number of places where you have got such an overflow of tourists that you get reactions. It's not only Venice, Dubrovnik, my home city of Stockholm. We are getting so many people, so now for the first time we are saying, can we really keep up? So question, when so many more richer people, how many tourists can you handle, and how can you make sure it functions? Have you got any conflicts between locals and tourists in Japan?
I am heavy users of Shinkansen and also airport in Japan, and I've been in Japan more than 10 years. And I know that many things have been done to improve inbound to improve service for inbound tourists, but many things need to be done regarding infrastructure also. When I see how I have recorded Shinkansen home now, and sometimes now the airport not doing good for the tourists, do you think you can influence public authorities regarding things like that?
You mean that more non-Japanese friendly infrastructure, particularly the rail? That's
yes. Recently, I can observe many things need to be improved, I think.
Okay. Please. Yeah. You.
So along the lines of the point that you've raised many times about investing into the infrastructure to support this inbound boom is education. So labor issues. All industries are experiencing diminished hiring, right? There just aren't enough Japanese people all across various manufacturing sectors and service sectors, but the most heavily hit is tourism. It's like 60–70% below. There's more jobs than there are people. So I'd like to get your comments about the state of education. Ross, you talked a little bit about this locally. How is Japan going to gear up to provide the sufficient number of management talent and upper-level talent, not low-level positions, for this boom that will continue? And as I understand it, this industry will be the #1 segment of the overall Japanese economy in a few years. That's my question.
So the first question was, all 3 questions, very interesting. First one was influx of tourists. The many cities are suffered. So over-tourism, like Kamakura City. So who is going to answer that? You would like to have the shot, Kato-san?
Yeah, over-tourism would be one of the biggest trouble in Japan in near future. In Spain, and this summer, there is a huge demo against over-tourism, like tourists go home. Yeah, you can see so many posts on Instagram or Facebook with tagline of tourists go home, because Airbnb is really pay for host owner, so the rental fee of house is increasing now in Barcelona. So usual residents, especially for younger people and family people, can't live in Barcelona anymore, and they move.
So the cost of living and too much. And so, do you think we should limit the number of inbound tourism?
I think it's a problem of leveling for season and
Yes.
Season and area.
Yeah.
So we have to spread the number inbound people to the other area or other season, like summer season. So the first try is leveling, not limit the number.
Rather than controlling, you think it's demand diversification is one of the things.
Yeah.
I think it comes down to, what do I get out of it? You know, is it good for me? So how much does that tourism affect the whole town? Does it go to that person's pocket? Does it go to that person's pocket? Or is it just going all in Ross's pocket? Well, I hope it's going all in my pocket, but It probably doesn't. So there's different types of tourism. But I think if the whole town's affected and the whole town's getting profit out of it, getting merit out of it in terms of infrastructure, fun infrastructure, money, of course, then you probably don't have a problem.
So there are certain levels of them. The first one is obviously who is getting the merit, and we have to have some way of that. Like the city of Kamakura, there are a huge number of tourists, but because of the lack of lodging, basically nobody stays at Kamakura, nobody's dying at Kamakura.
Yeah.
So
About
actually,
the consumption yen, 1900 yen, 100 yen consumption average in
yes.
Kamakura.
And Kamakura is known as a high-end residential area. So the issue is balancing the supply and demand and how to allocate the money. And the second thing is actually control. I think we sooner or later need to talk about how to control the inflow. Obviously, it's better to have the marketing mechanics of diversification, but there are certain limits one local community can accommodate. But there are many, many municipalities in Japan who are lacking inbound tourism still. So there are certain things we need to come up. The second question is user friendliness. There are many things which foreign travelers face. Unbelievable. Is this really omotenashi Japan? Are there any things you have in mind to boost up our service level for the non-Japanese user friendliness?
Well, I'd like to address the first question since I didn't have a chance to answer.
Of course, please.
So, I think she made a very good point that basically the answer to Japan's overcrowding in Kyoto, Hiroshima, Osaka, Tokyo, is to send people elsewhere. The problem is, and you've brought it up in your introductory remarks, is that there are a lot of really ugly and underdeveloped places in Japan. So unless they're as beautiful as Kamakura and Kyoto, why would people go there, right? Well, the answer is they may not go there because it looks beautiful. They may go there for some activity. And in fact, this is a well-established fact. There are tons of people who go to Akihabara, and Akihabara is certainly not very beautiful, right? But people go there because that's where you get maid cafes. And that's something unique, and the culture that's been spread around Japan brings people there.
Cat cafe, dog cafe, owl cafe.
Right, so Ross's part, I'm going to say this for you, I'll give you an ad. So Ross is part of a trend of foreigners in Japan who are investing in adventure parks, where they basically take an outdoors area that normally wouldn't attract more people than a few hunters and hikers, and then suddenly give them something unique to do. So while I don't know Ross's numbers, I'm friends with the guy who runs Bungee Japan. There are about 14 now bungee jumps in Japan which are authorized. And by the way, those are mostly done from Ministry of Land and Infrastructure and Transport bridges. That was illegal to jump off those bridges 5 years ago. But Kiwi-Australian group managed to convince the ministry that it was a good idea to let people jump off bridges. The highest producing bridge jump has 10,000 customers a year at $150 US per customer. If you think about for jumping in remote areas. So, suddenly you've got a bridge which needs maintenance and which nobody wants to look after becoming a valuable tourist asset. Here's the other key point. Those are foreigners that are doing that, just like this foreigner has helped a bunch of other foreigners turn Niseko into a desirable location. Yeah. Gaijin Mesen, foreigner viewpoint, is extremely important if Japan wants to improve its position in inbound tourism. Yeah. One more thing. Japan was basically set up for infrastructure for ongoing population growth, right? The reason why we don't need more lavatories and we don't need more trains and that sort of thing, even though we have 30 million people coming in a year, is that the government already planned ahead for 150 million person population. Sure. Japan doesn't have an infrastructure problem. It's a distribution problem.
And also user friendliness. Do you have anything to say about the user friendliness?
Can I add something here? Usually, it's funny you say that because one of the things, this is a warning, one of the things about Niseko is you get off the plane at Chitose in Hokkaido, and you're met by a foreigner who puts you on a bus and takes you to your hotel where there's foreign staff waiting at the front for the hotel. You go to the rental ski company and you get your skis from some foreigners there, and then you go to the ski school and a foreign instructor instructs you, and you've had this whole week. You go to the restaurant and there's foreign, except for my restaurant. If you go to the restaurant, there's foreign people at the restaurant waiting for you and cooking for you. And for the whole week or 2 weeks you're in Niseko, you've never met a Japanese person. Where was the Japanese experience? So there's two sides, and education, of course, is going to be a big thing there. Japan has to make its own tourism. Niseko's all foreign investment and almost all foreign companies. Not all, but mostly. So they're bringing foreign tourism to Japan, not from tourists. They're bringing the way of managing tourism to Japan and doing it with foreign staff. But the one thing about Niseko that a lot of people decide to go to another ski resort is it's just too foreign.
So I think one thing is that we need to put more gaijin mesen, a foreigner's point of view. But the syndrome you mentioned is exactly the one we experienced in 1980s and 90s, Hawaii and Guam. If you were gel pack travelers, all you are going to experience is Japan, outside of Japan. So how to make the good hybrid of it is one of the key things. Do you have any opinions about education particularly?
Yeah. I talk about one example. Snow Resort teach Chinese people to be a ski instructor with Chinese because the demand of Chinese ski lesson is increasing now. So they spend several years to raise them up to be instructor of skiing by Chinese. Then that Chinese instructors become to be independent and don't do their business by their own.
Oh, they start their own business.
Yeah. And so now that Snow Resort stopped teaching and educating, and they development a new helmet and voice system with translator. They hired a Japanese ski instructor. He speaks only Japanese, and then speaks Chinese translator that can't do skiing, and to pair. They teaches now ski instructors as ski lessons in Chinese.
So the ideal thing is that
technology combined.
The technology combined with the experts. Another things which we haven't covered, it's silo issues. Not only ministry, but the industry is siloed, as Terry mentions. We need to come up with integration of those ski schools and activity school, lodge, restaurants, and local transportation, and how to make it more kind of a seamless kind of experience for non-Japanese in the language they are fluent of is one of the areas where we can put technology in. I have to apologize that we are running out of time, but on that education point, two universities have just started a tourism MBA. One is the one which I'm teaching at Kyoto University. Starting next April, tying up with Cornell University, which is well known for hotel and service industry, there is going to joint degree program. We definitely need the managers who can manage productivity, demand generation, and also thinking about the future, not only the local staff people. Well, I really would like to thank all the distinguished panelists. There are a bunch of information which are quite new to me. I'm being in this industry, but there are many things I can learn a lot. I hope you at least have some kind of takeaways, and please give big applause to our distinguished speakers. Thank you.